At 68 years old, I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. Then I was escorted from the hospital I'd cleaned for 17 years, labeled a liar and a fraud, all because of the lunch container I carried, but never ate from. No one bothered to look inside. No one asked why it was always full at the end of my shift or why I worked through hunger pains each night. They just saw rules broken, not lives being saved. What would you do if your own family tried to destroy you? If the truth that could vindicate you was hidden in plain sight, tucked between layers of love that no one cared to see? My story isn't just about losing a job. It's about what happens when the people who should protect you become the ones you need protection from, and how sometimes the smallest objects carry the heaviest secrets. Follow my channel for more heart-wrenching true stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about family, sacrifice, and justice. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. I read every comment, and your support means the world to me. The ground seemed to vanish beneath my feet that day. I heard the words, "You're fired, Mrs. Clarice," echo from the hospital manager's mouth like a final sentence. But what truly shattered me wasn't the termination itself. It was the way everyone looked at me, like I was a criminal, an imposter, and all because of the lunch container I carried inside my worn-out backpack, the one nobody ever bothered to open. At 68, I spent my nights cleaning the halls of Topeka Community Hospital, the cold corridors, rooms filled with silence, and the tired smiles of patients who never received visitors. During the day, I cared for 3 young children, as if they were my own. The children of the woman my brother had abandoned without looking back. I never charged a penny for it, but according to HR, this was the second job that disqualified me. No one ever asked why I never ate in the cafeteria, why my lunch container was always full, even when my stomach growled with hunger. That morning, I was escorted to the gate with my backpack hanging from one shoulder and my crushed heart weighing down the other. I knew that container held more than just rice and beans. It held a secret, and someday, sooner or later, someone would open it and never be able to close it again. 68 years old and thrown out like yesterday's trash, I muttered to myself as the security guard watched me gather my few belongings from my locker. My hands trembled, not from age, but from the humiliation burning through my veins. "I'm sorry, Clarice. It's not personal." "It's policy," said Karen from HR, clutching her clipboard like a shield. The same Karen who'd smiled and complimented my homemade cookies at last year's staff Christmas party. "Policy," I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. 17 years cleaning these floors and I'm dismissed with a policy. Karen couldn't meet my eyes. No one could. They all stared at the floor, the same floor I'd polished countless nights until I could see my reflection in it. My knees ached just thinking about all those hours on the hard tile, scrubbing away other people's messes, making everything spotless, while my own life remained in disarray. "The complaint was specific," Karen continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You're violating your contract by working a second job that conflicts with hospital hours. We have evidence." My heart sank deeper. Evidence? What could they possibly have? I clutched my backpack closer, feeling the outline of my lunch container press against my spine. "What evidence?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Karen shuffled her papers nervously. A family member came forward, with photos of you, working elsewhere during hours you claimed to be resting between shifts. A family member. The words hit me like a physical blow. I knew immediately. It could only be Shauna, my own niece. The girl I'd practically raised after my sister passed. The same girl who'd been eyeing Helena's modest house with unveiled interest since my brother Douglas abandoned his cancer-stricken wife and their 3 children. The security guard cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with how long this was taking. I could see patients peering curiously from their rooms. Some of them recognized me. Mr. Peterson from room 302 gave me a small wave, confusion written across his face. Mrs. Delgado, the night nurse who'd shared countless cups of coffee with me during quiet shifts, stood frozen at the nurse's station, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Can I at least say goodbye to some of the patients?" I asked, thinking of Mr. Malcolm in room 17, who never had visitors except for me. "I'm afraid not," Karen replied, not unkindly. "It's better this way." Better for whom? I wanted to ask, but held my tongue. 17 years of dignity wouldn't be erased by one moment of losing my composure. As we walked toward the exit, my foot caught on an uneven tile, one I'd reported to maintenance months ago. and I stumbled forward. My backpack slipped from my shoulder and hit the ground with a thud. The zipper, worn from years of use, gave way, and my belongings spilled out across the polished floor. The security guard moved to help, but froze when he saw my lunch container roll out, its lid loosening just enough to reveal a glimpse of what was inside. Not just food, but carefully folded papers with childish drawings on them. "I've got it," I said quickly, scrambling to gather my things before anyone could see more. But it was too late. Karen had seen it too. The colorful crayon drawings signed with, "We love you, Auntie Cece," in a child's unsteady handwriting. For a moment, something like doubt crossed Karen's face. "Clarice, if there's something we should note." "There's nothing." I cut her off, zipping my bag with trembling fingers. Nothing that would matter to hospital policy. The automatic doors slid open, releasing me into the crisp morning air. October in Kansas was always beautiful, a final burst of color before the gray winter set in. I'd always loved watching the seasons change through the hospital windows while the world slept. Now, standing on the sidewalk as a former employee, I felt exposed and adrift. "Your final paycheck will be mailed," Karen said from behind me, her voice small. "And good luck, Clarice." I didn't turn around. Couldn't. The tears were already streaming down my weathered face, carving paths through decades of quiet endurance. Instead, I clutched my backpack and walked away with as much dignity as I could muster, each step feeling like I was walking on broken glass. At the bus stop 2 blocks away, I finally allowed myself to collapse onto the bench. The morning commuters streamed past, each locked in their own worlds, none noticing the elderly woman quietly falling apart on a public bench. I unzipped my backpack again and pulled out my lunch container, holding it like the precious thing it was. The plastic was worn from years of use. The once bright blue now faded to a tired gray. Like me, I thought ruefully. Faded and discarded. Inside were 3 separate compartments. Rice and beans in one, sweet potatoes in another, and a small section for a piece of fruit. Food I never ate. Food meant for Helena's children, Tommy, Lily, and baby James, who waited for me to return each morning after my shift, hungry and hopeful. But tucked beneath the food, hidden from casual glances, were the real treasures. Drawings, notes, a small diary I kept of the children's milestones, and something else. Something that would eventually bring everything to light. I should have known better, I whispered to myself, watching as a hospital transport van drove past, the same one I'd ridden in countless times for staff events. Nothing stays buried forever. My phone buzzed in my pocket, an old flip phone I kept for emergencies. The screen showed a text from Helena. "Are you coming? James has a fever." Reality crashed back. I had no time for self-pity. 3 children and their dying mother needed me. The hospital had taken my job, my routine, my small measure of financial security, but they couldn't take my purpose. As I boarded the bus that would take me to Helena's small house on the edge of town, I made a silent promise to myself. This wasn't over. Someday everyone would know why I carried that lunch container, why I never ate from it, and when that day came, those who had judged me would understand what it truly means to carry another's burden. The bus lurched forward, carrying me toward an uncertain future. But one thing was certain. The truth in my lunch container would eventually spill out, and when it did, it would be impossible to contain. I never imagined that caring for someone out of love could be considered a job. But after being fired, I sat on the steps of the bus terminal and cried, clutching my backpack as if it were my last shred of dignity. The lunch container was still there, weighing on my back while memories surfaced. Of the first time I saw Helena collapsed at my doorstep, her 3 children clinging to the hem of her skirt. That day remains etched in my mind like a photograph I can't discard. It was raining, one of those sudden Midwest downpours that seemed to come from nowhere. I was watching my evening programs, wrapped in my mother's old quilt, when the knocking began. Not urgent pounding, but a weak, intermittent tapping that I nearly mistook for the rain. When I opened the door, Helena was barely conscious, her body frail and drenched. Her skin had that sickly gray pallor that speaks of something worse than ordinary fatigue. Tommy, the oldest at 7, was trying to hold her up with his small shoulders. 5-year-old Lily was crying silently, huge tears rolling down her cheeks. And baby James, just 2, clung to his mother's leg, his diaper soaked through, his eyes wide with a toddler's incomprehension of disaster. "He left us," Tommy said simply, his chin trembling with the effort not to cry. "Dad said Mom's medicine cost too much. He took the car." Helena was the woman my brother Douglas had abandoned when she discovered her cancer. He claimed he couldn't carry a sick person's burden and disappeared. I, who could never have children of my own, couldn't ignore the scene before me. I began caring for the children while she underwent treatments. The neighbors whispered. My niece judged me, but I pretended not to hear. I only saw 3 hungry mouths and a mother silently wasting away. Your brother's trash, my neighbor Mrs. Finley had said when she saw me walking the children to the park. Always was. But those kids aren't yours to raise, Clarice. You're taking on heartache that don't belong to you. Perhaps she was right. But when I looked into Tommy's serious eyes, so like my brother's before life hardened him, I couldn't turn away. Some burdens choose us, rather than the other way around. I took a leave of absence from the hospital at first. 2 weeks that stretched into a month while Helena underwent her first round of chemotherapy. The doctors were optimistic then. Caught it early, they said. But I saw how she trembled when they weren't looking, how she studied her children's faces as if memorizing them. When my savings dwindled, I had to return to work. That's when the lunch container became my silent companion. I'd pack it each night before my shift, not for me but for the children's breakfast. A system evolved. I'd prepare everything, leave it in the refrigerator with clear labels for Tommy, who had become solemn and responsible beyond his years. After my night shift, I'd return to Helena's house instead of my own apartment, help get the children ready for school, then collapse for a few hours before starting again. No one at the hospital asked why I looked increasingly exhausted, why my uniform hung looser on my frame each month. They were good people mostly, but everyone is fighting their own battles. Mine was simply invisible to them. Once, my niece Shauna asked why I carried that lunch container every day if I never ate from it. I smiled and replied, "There are things we carry to nourish what others can't see." At the time, she laughed, but I noticed that after that day, she began watching me more closely, and there was something strange in her gaze, something calculating, something that reminded me too much of my brother in his worst moments. I should have recognized the warning signs, the way Shauna began asking casual questions about Helena's house, whether she had insurance, if my brother's name was still on the deed. But I was too exhausted, stretched too thin between hospital floors and children's nightmares, to see the trap being laid. "You're killing yourself for them," Shauna said one Sunday when she visited unexpectedly. She was standing in Helena's kitchen, watching as I prepared meals for the coming week. The children were in the backyard, their laughter floating through the open window like music I'd never tire of hearing. "They need someone," I replied simply. "And what about what you need?" she countered, picking up a knife to help slice vegetables. "You're 68, Aunt Clarice. You should be retiring, not playing mother to someone else's kids." "They're not just someone's kids," I said, feeling a rare flare of anger. "They're your cousins. They're family." Shauna set down the knife with a sharp click against the cutting board. "Family doesn't just disappear for years and then expect you to pick up the pieces." The irony of her statement, given how her own father, my younger brother, had done exactly that, wasn't lost on me, but I held my tongue. Shauna had her own complicated history with her father. I wouldn't use it as a weapon. "No one's expecting anything," I said instead. "I'm choosing this. Are you? Or are you just too afraid to say no, to let someone else handle the burden for once?" Her words hit too close to a truth I wasn't ready to examine. Later that night, after Shauna left and the children were asleep, I found a business card tucked into my purse. A real estate agent. Scrawled on the back were the words, "When you're ready to think about yourself again." I dropped it into the trash without a second thought. But sometimes in the darkest hours of my hospital shifts, when my back ached and my eyes burned with fatigue, I'd wonder if Shauna was right. If I was sacrificing myself on an altar of obligation no one had asked me to build. If my lunch container, with its carefully packed food that never nourished me, was a symbol of something broken in my own soul. Then morning would come, and with it Tommy's serious assistance getting his siblings dressed, Lily's drawings saved especially for me, baby James's arms reaching up with complete trust. And I'd know, with a certainty that transcended exhaustion, that some prices are worth paying, even if no one else understands the currency. 1 week before my dismissal, I found a strange note in my backpack. "Be careful of those who share your last name." It sent chills down my spine. It was a woman's handwriting, but unsigned. I tucked the paper between the compartments of my lunch container, not knowing why. Perhaps because deep down, I already knew. It was the same week that Shauna began ignoring me at home. And when the hospital manager started acting coldly, as if I had done something unforgivable, the note appeared on a Tuesday morning after my shift. I was in the hospital locker room, my fingers stiff with arthritis and cleaning chemicals, when I unzipped my backpack to retrieve my bus pass. The folded paper fluttered to the floor like a wounded bird. At first, I thought it might be one of the children's drawings that had slipped from my lunch container, but the crisp white paper and neat adult handwriting told a different story. I glanced around the empty locker room, suddenly aware of my vulnerability. Who had accessed my belongings? Who knew enough about my family situation to warn me? The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows that seemed to pulse with unspoken threats. Be careful of those who share your last name. The Doyle name. My brother Douglas. My niece Shauna. The only blood relatives I had left. I folded the note carefully and slipped it between the dividers of my lunch container, where it nestled among Tommy's math homework I'd promised to help with and Lily's latest crayon masterpiece. The plastic felt unusually cold against my fingers, as if the warning had dropped the temperature of everything it touched. That evening, when I arrived at Helena's house, Shauna's car was in the driveway, an unusual sight on a weekday. Through the living room window, I could see her sitting close to Helena on the sofa, their heads bent together in serious conversation. Helena looked pale, more so than usual, her cheekbones sharp beneath skin pulled too tight over bone. The children were playing quietly in the yard, an unnatural hush about them that spoke of adult tensions felt but not understood. Tommy saw me first, his small face lighting up before he remembered whatever instructions he'd been given. He glanced nervously toward the house before approaching me. "Aunt Cece," he whispered, using the nickname only the children called me. "Shauna said we shouldn't bother you anymore. Is that true? Are you too tired of us?" My heart clenched like a fist. "Never," I said, kneeling despite the protest from my knees. "I could never be tired of you." "Who told you that?" "Shauna told Mom that you're working too hard because of us, that you're going to get sick like Mom if you don't stop. She said," he looked down, scuffing his shoe against the ground. "She said we're not really your responsibility." The cruelty of using a child as a messenger struck me silent for a moment. I glanced toward the house, where Shauna now stood at the window, watching us with an expression I couldn't read. "Tommy," I said carefully, "you, Lily, and James are the best part of my day. Don't you worry about grown-up problems, okay? That's for me and your mom to figure out." He nodded solemnly, but the shadow remained in his eyes. Children absorb more than we give them credit for. They feel the tremors of adult earthquakes long before the ground visibly shifts. Later that night, after Shauna left with a too bright smile and a kiss on my cheek that felt like a brand, Helena confided in me. "She wants me to sell the house," Helena whispered, her voice threadbare with exhaustion. We sat at her kitchen table, the children finally asleep, cups of tea cooling between us. "Says I could use the money for better treatments, that I could move in with her until—" She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to, until she died. That was Shauna's plan. "This house is for the children," Helena continued. "It's all I have to leave them. Douglas may have left, but he signed the deed over to me when he thought the cancer might be temporary. One decent thing he did, I suppose." I covered her hand with mine, noting how the bones felt like a bird's beneath her papery skin. "What do you want to do?" "I want my children to have stability," she said, a flash of the old Helena, determined, fierce in her quiet way, showing through. "I want them to stay in their home, their school, their community. I don't want them uprooted while they're also losing me." The unspoken request hung in the air between us. Stay. Be their constant. Give them what Douglas couldn't. "I made you a copy of my will," Helena said, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. "It's not official yet. I'll sign it with a lawyer next week, but I want you to know what's in it." I didn't open it. Some knowledge weighs too heavy for immediate bearing. The following morning, my shift supervisor called me into his office at the end of my night shift, an unusual occurrence that immediately set my nerves on edge. Martin Weber had been fair to me over the years, if not particularly warm. "Clarice," he said, not meeting my eyes, "there have been some concerns raised about your performance recently." "Concerns?" I echoed, genuinely confused. My evaluation the previous month had been exemplary, as always. Reports of sleeping on the job, areas left uncleaned. He shuffled papers on his desk, still not looking at me, and questions about your availability and commitment to the position. The pieces clicked into place with cold clarity. "Who reported these things, Martin?" He cleared his throat. I'm not at liberty to say, but as you know, hospital policy takes such reports very seriously, especially when they come from family, I supplied when he trailed off. His startled glance was confirmation enough. I still remember the call I got from HR. Mrs. Doyle, you've violated your contract. We have evidence that you're working another paid job during hours that conflict with your hospital schedule. I repeated the words exactly as they'd been spoken to me on the phone the day before. I asked who reported me, but they wouldn't say. Just hung up. Martin had the grace to look uncomfortable. You know I can't discuss HR matters with you, Clarice. I know. I stood, suddenly bone-weary in a way that had nothing to do with my night's labor. But my intuition tells me this complaint came from inside my family, and everything points to Shauna, my own niece, wanting me gone from here. What she would gain from it I still didn't know, but something started to hurt differently. A pain that wasn't just physical. It was the weight of carrying alone what others called a mistake, but what to me was just love disguised as a lunch container. As I left his office, the early morning light slanted through the hospital windows, catching dust motes that danced in the air like secrets waiting to be revealed. The day shift workers were arriving, fresh-faced and chattering. None of them noticed the night cleaner with her worn backpack and her eyes full of quiet dread. I passed Mr. Malcolm's room, number 17, and paused when I heard my name called in a weak voice. Mrs. Doyle, is that you slipping by like a ghost? I stepped into the doorway, forced a smile. Just finishing my shift, Mr. Malcolm. Can I get you anything before I go? The elderly veteran, a fixture in the hospital for months now, beckoned me closer with a gnarled finger. I've been watching, he whispered. The tall woman who looks like you, she's been asking questions. My blood ran cold. What kind of questions? About your schedule, when you take breaks, if you ever leave early. He coughed, a rattling sound that spoke of failing lungs. I didn't like her eyes, cold, like my sergeant's before he'd send men on a suicide mission. I patted his hand, hiding my turmoil. Don't you worry about me, Mr. Malcolm. I've weathered worse storms. I'm sure you have, he said, his gaze suddenly sharp and clear. But even the strongest ships need a lighthouse in the dark. I moved into the small back room of Helena's house after her condition worsened. The children slept on the floor beside me, and every night I wrote in an old yellow notebook the phrases they said during the day. It was my way of preserving those moments. The room was barely larger than a closet, once a pantry before Helena's grandfather had converted it into a makeshift office decades ago. The single window faced east, allowing morning light to filter through thin curtains I'd sewn from an old bedsheet. A twin mattress took up most of the floor space, with just enough room for 3 small pallets arranged like petals around it. The walls were covered with the children's artwork, bright splashes of color that transformed the cramped space into something like a home. Those first few weeks living there full-time had a dreamlike quality. I'd arrive from my hospital shift as dawn broke, tiptoeing through the quiet house to check on Helena before collapsing onto my narrow bed. Often I'd wake to find Lily curled against my side, her small hand clutching my nightgown, or James standing solemn-faced by the bed, waiting for permission to climb up. Tommy would already be in the kitchen, his serious little face pinched with concentration as he tried to reach the cereal boxes for his siblings' breakfast. You don't have to do that, sweetheart, I'd tell him. That's what I'm here for. But you're tired, Aunt Cece, he'd reply, wise beyond his years. Mom says we have to take care of you too. At night before my shift, I'd record their words in my notebook. The funny things, the heartbreaking things, the unexpected wisdom that emerged from their small mouths. When is Daddy coming home? Lily had asked one evening. And before I could formulate a gentle answer, Tommy had said, some daddies don't know how to be brave like mommies. I wrote it down, my tears smudging the ink. But one day, the notebook disappeared. I tore apart my small room looking for it, checked under the children's pallets, searched through the laundry basket where I kept our few belongings neatly sorted. It was gone, along with the envelope Helena had given me containing her will. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I knew with the certainty of someone who has seen too many betrayals that this was no accident, no childish prank. Someone had taken it deliberately. Tommy? I asked casually as I helped him with homework that evening. Did you see anyone in our room today while I was at the hospital? He frowned, pencil pausing over his math problems. Shauna came by. She brought Mom some medicine, and then she was looking for something in your room. She said you asked her to get a paper for you. I kept my expression neutral, though my heart raced. I see. Thank you, sweetie. A week later, the social workers appeared at the door, their official clipboards and sympathetic yet professional expressions setting off alarm bells before they even spoke. They explained that someone had made a neglect complaint against me, claiming I was forcing the children to sleep on the floor, that I was absent for long periods, that they were going hungry while I worked. It was the first time I doubted whether I was being selfish, whether caring for someone in silence was truly wrong. But deep down I knew what was behind it. Shauna wanted Helena's house, a property that, according to her, should have stayed in the family since my brother was the ex-husband. Except my brother never came back, not even to watch his wife die. Mrs. Doyle, the younger social worker, said, a woman named Bethany with kind eyes that seemed at odds with her rigid posture, "We need to conduct a home evaluation. The allegations are serious." "Of course," I replied, opening the door wider. "The children are at school, but they'll be home soon. Helena is resting, but you're welcome to speak with her if the doctor says she's strong enough today." They spent 2 hours examining everything. The food in the refrigerator, labeled and organized for easy access. The children's sleeping area, humble but clean with beloved stuffed animals and books within reach. The medication schedule I'd taped to Helena's bedroom door, color-coded and precise. They interviewed Helena, whose strength surprised me as she defended my care of her children with a fierce dignity that brought tears to my eyes. "She's the only one who stayed," Helena told them, her voice thin but unwavering. "When everyone else, including their father, found reasons to leave, Clarice found reasons to stay. If that's neglect, then we need a new definition." The social workers left with non-committal smiles and promises to be in touch. The moment their car pulled away, Helena collapsed back against her pillows, the brief energy spent. Her breathing labored. "It was Shauna," she whispered as I adjusted her oxygen. "She told me what she did, said it was for my own good, that the children would be better off in proper care while I focused on treatment." A bitter laugh escaped her. "As if there's any treatment left that would make a difference now." I took her fragile hand in mine, feeling the bird-like bones beneath paper-thin skin. Why would she do this? What does she gain? Helena's eyes fluttered closed with exhaustion. "The house, my father's insurance policy, she thinks—" A rattling cough interrupted her, and I held a tissue to her lips, alarmed by the bright spot of blood. "She thinks Douglas deserves it more than my children. Blood ties and all that nonsense." That night at the hospital, I moved through my cleaning duties like a sleepwalker. The corridor seemed longer, the silences deeper, the shadows in empty rooms more threatening. I was being watched. I could feel it in the prickling between my shoulder blades, in the way conversation stopped when I entered break rooms, in the pitying glances from nurses who had once greeted me warmly. My supervisor avoided me entirely. Only the patients, in their vulnerable honesty, treated me the same, with gratitude for the small kindnesses I showed them. An extra blanket, a cup of ice chips, a moment of genuine conversation in the lonely hours when sleep eluded them. Mr. Malcolm in room 17 was awake when I came to clean, propped against his pillows, his oxygen mask pushed aside despite doctor's orders. He watched me work in silence for several minutes before speaking. "They're fixing to get rid of you," he said bluntly. A lifetime military man who saw no point in sugarcoating truths. "Been listening to the nurses' gossip?" I paused in my mopping. "Seems that way." He beckoned me closer with a gnarled finger. When I approached his bedside, he pressed a folded napkin into my hand. "Don't throw it away," he instructed, his voice dropping to a whisper. "This will save you one day." I started to unfold it, but he stopped me with surprising strength for one so frail. "Not here, not now. When the time comes, you'll know." I slipped the napkin into my uniform pocket, oddly comforted by its slight weight. "Thank you, Mr. Malcolm." "No need for thanks," he replied, settling back against his pillows with a grimace of pain. "Just justice. Something this world's in short supply of these days." As I finished my shift and headed to the bus stop, dawn was breaking over the Kansas horizon, a streak of pale gold against a gunmetal sky that promised rain. My bones ached with a fatigue that went beyond physical exhaustion. The napkin in my pocket seemed to burn against my thigh, a reminder of allies in unexpected places. The social worker's verdict came 3 days later. No evidence of neglect found. Their report specifically praised the obvious care and attention to detail in the children's environment. Helena wept with relief when I read her the letter. But our victory was short-lived. That same afternoon, I received the call from hospital HR, the one that would lead to my dismissal the next day, the one that would change everything. On the morning of my dismissal, my lunch container fell to the hospital floor when a security guard pushed past me in a hurry. The lid popped off and the rice mixed with sweet potatoes scattered everywhere. But what shocked everyone was what lay at the bottom of the container. 3 little letters drawn with colored pencils, all signed, "We love you, Auntie Cece," one for each day of the week. The security guard, a burly man named Frank who'd always nodded hello but never bothered with conversation, froze mid-stride. His eyes widened as he stared at the colorful papers now exposed among the spilled food. Around us, the early morning shift change halted, creating an island of stillness in the hospital's usual bustle. Nurse Patty Mitchell, who'd worked the night shift with me for over a decade, crouched to help gather the scattered rice. Her hand paused over one of the drawings, a childish rendering of 5 stick figures holding hands. Above them, in wobbly lettering, "Our family. Me, James, Lily, Mommy, and Auntie Cece." "Clarice," she whispered, her voice carrying in the sudden quiet. "What is this?" I couldn't answer. The humiliation burned too hot in my throat, strangling words before they could form. With trembling hands, I gathered the drawings, folded them carefully, and tucked them back into the lunch container. The mess of food I left. Let them see the evidence of my shame. My secret laid bare on the antiseptic hospital floor. Frank cleared his throat awkwardly. "Mrs. Doyle, I didn't mean to." "It's fine," I cut him off, snapping the container shut. "You're just doing your job." From the end of the corridor, I could see Martin Weber watching, his expression caught between discomfort and something that might have been shame. The HR representative beside him, a woman I'd never seen before, not Karen from yesterday, whispered something and he nodded stiffly. I straightened my back, ignored the shooting pain from my arthritic hip, and walked toward them with as much dignity as I could muster. The scattered rice crunched beneath my sensible shoes, each step a small surrender. "I'll escort myself out," I said before either could speak. "Just tell me where to leave my badge." The woman from HR, her name tag read Diane, looked startled. "Mrs. Doyle, perhaps we should discuss this in private." "There's nothing to discuss," I interrupted, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. "You've made your decision based on a lie, and I've made mine based on love. Neither of us is likely to change our minds." Martin at least had the decency to look ashamed. "Clarice, if there are extenuating circumstances." I almost laughed at the bureaucratic phrase, so insufficient to encompass the reality of Helena's cancer, 3 children who called me auntie, and a dying woman's trust. Instead, I unpinned my ID badge and placed it in his outstretched hand. 17 years, I said quietly. No complaints. Perfect attendance except when I had pneumonia in 2018. And this is how it ends, because someone decided caring for dying family isn't an acceptable use of my time. The security guard, Frank, shifted uncomfortably behind me. I could feel his presence like a shadow, no longer threatening, but somehow protective. "The children in those drawings," I continued, my voice dropping so only Martin and Diane could hear, "are my grandniece and grandnephews. Their mother is dying of stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Their father, my brother, abandoned them when the diagnosis came. I am all they have." Each word felt wrenched from somewhere deep inside me, a truth I'd carried silently for so long, now exposed to the harsh fluorescent lighting of hospital politics. Diane's professional mask slipped. "Mrs. Doyle, I had no idea." "No, you didn't," I agreed. "Because no one asked. No one ever asked why I never ate in the cafeteria, why my lunch container was always full at the end of my shift. You all just assumed I was breaking rules, not holding a family together." Martin's face had drained of color. "The complaint said you were working a second paid position. That you were paid?" This time I did laugh, a short, bitter sound that echoed in the corridor. "I've never taken a penny. I'm not their nanny, Mr. Weber. I'm the only adult who didn't abandon them." For a moment, I thought it might make a difference. I saw the calculations behind Martin's eyes, the reconsideration, the doubt. But then he glanced at the HR representative, at the hospital policy manual clutched in her manicured hands, and I watched his expression harden back into bureaucratic resolve. "I'm sorry, Clarice, policy is clear about disclosure of conflicts. If you'd just told us, you would have what? Given me permission to care for dying family?" Made an exception to your precious policy? The anger was rising now, burning away the last of my shame. Or would you have done exactly this, just with less surprise when you found out the truth? I didn't wait for his answer. With one last look at the place that had been my workplace for nearly 2 decades, I turned and walked toward the exit. Frank, the security guard, hurried ahead to open the door for me, a small courtesy that nearly broke my composure. Outside, the October morning was crisp and clear, the kind of perfect fall day that usually lifted my spirits after a long night shift. Today, it felt like mockery. I made it to the bus stop before the tears came, hot and silent, tracking down cheeks weathered by years of quiet endurance. I sat on the same bench where I'd waited for the bus countless times, my backpack heavy on my lap, the lunch container nestled inside like a secret too late to keep. An elderly woman sat down beside me, her own bag clutched in gnarled hands. "Bad day, dear?" she asked, offering a tissue from a plastic pack. I accepted it with a mumbled thanks, too drained to explain or deflect. "The worst." She nodded sagely. My herald used to say the darkest hour comes before dawn. Never quite believed him myself, seemed too neat. But there's something to it, maybe. I managed a watery smile, dabbing at my eyes. "I'm not sure there's a dawn coming after this particular darkness." "There always is," she replied, with the certainty of someone who had weathered many storms. "Might not look like what you expect, but it'll come." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. The screen displayed, "If you don't tell everything, I will. What's inside your lunch container is bigger than you think." My blood ran cold. I showed the phone to no one, tucked it away with trembling fingers. The bus arrived, hissing to a stop before us, but I couldn't make myself stand. The elderly woman patted my hand before rising. "Whatever it is, dear, face it straight on. Monsters grow bigger in the shadows of our fear." She boarded the bus, leaving me alone on the bench, the weight of secrets and betrayal crushing my chest. In that moment, I realized there was nowhere to run, no place to hide the truth any longer. Whatever storm was coming, I would have to stand and face it, armed only with a lunch container full of children's drawings and 17 years of silent sacrifice. That night, as I heated soup for the children's dinner, I watched them through new eyes. Tommy helping James with his shoelaces, Lily setting the table without being asked, their small faces solemn with the knowledge that their mother slept more than she woke now, that the hospice nurses' visits were growing more frequent. They had survived so much already. How could I shield them from what was coming? I couldn't, but I could prepare them in small ways. As we sat down to our humble meal, I took a deep breath. "Children," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I need to tell you something important about family and truth and being brave even when it's hard." 3 pairs of eyes, so much like Helena's, so trusting, looked back at me, and in that moment I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. Mr. Malcolm's napkin was still in my pocket, slightly crumpled. I decided to open it that night, and there it was, a handwritten will. He left everything he owned, a small house and some money, to the only person who saw his pain. Full name, Clarice Ann Doyle. The thin paper trembled between my fingers as I smoothed it out on Helena's kitchen table. The children were finally asleep after a dinner where I'd tried to explain, in terms they could understand, that I wouldn't be working at the hospital anymore. That money might be tight for a while, that we would need to be extra careful with our resources. "Like a game?" Lily had asked, her small face serious. "Like when we pretend we're pioneers?" "Something like that, sweetheart," I'd answered, my heart breaking at how easily they accepted hardship, these children who had already endured so much. Now, alone in the pool of yellow light cast by the single kitchen bulb, I stared at the cramped handwriting on the napkin. The hospice nurse had left an hour ago, after administering Helena's evening medications and helping her bathe, tasks that hollowed me out to witness, knowing how fiercely independent she had once been. "To whom it may concern," the napkin read, the formal language at odds with its humble medium. "I, Malcolm James Everett, being of sound mind, hereby bequeath my property at 1742 Sycamore Lane, Topeka, Kansas, and all its contents, as well as my military pension and savings, account details with my lawyer, to Clarice Ann Doyle, employee of Topeka Community Hospital. She alone saw my humanity when others saw only an old man waiting to die. Her kindness restored my faith in people. Her care reminded me of dignity. May she use these modest offerings to continue her quiet work of mercy. Witnessed and notarized on September 12, 2023, by Edward Jameson, Notary Public. Below was a signature I recognized, the shaky scrawl I'd seen on medical consent forms during my shifts, alongside the neat penmanship of what must have been the notary. It couldn't be real. It couldn't be legal. A will written on a napkin? And why would he leave anything to me? A night shift cleaning woman who did nothing more than straighten his room, refill his water, and occasionally pause to listen to his stories of Korea. Yet the napkin bore an official-looking seal pressed into the paper, the raised texture visible even in the dim light. And something in my gut told me Malcolm Everett was not a man who acted without intention or knowledge. I folded the napkin carefully and slipped it back into my pocket, my mind racing. What did one do with such an unexpected gift? With such an improbable lifeline thrown at the exact moment one was drowning? The following morning, after seeing Tommy and Lily off to school and settling James with picture books in the living room where Helena could watch him from her hospital bed, I made a decision. I would return to the hospital, not as an employee, but as a visitor with a purpose. The autumn air bit through my thin jacket as I walked the 8 blocks, unable to spare bus fare. My arthritis flared with each step, a sharp counterpoint to the rhythm of my determined stride. By the time I reached the familiar glass entrance doors, my resolve had solidified like steel. I approached the volunteer at the information desk, Marge, who had always greeted me with a smile during shift changes. "Clarice," she exclaimed, surprise evident in her voice. I heard what happened. "It's not right, not after all your years here." I managed a small smile. "Thank you, Marge, but I'm actually here to see the hospital's social worker. It's important." 15 minutes later, I sat across from Bethany Taylor, the same kind-eyed social worker who had evaluated Helena's home. Her office was small but warm, with children's artwork tacked to a bulletin board and a bookshelf overflowing with resources on community support services. "Mrs. Doyle," she began, clearly uncomfortable, "I want you to know that my report had nothing to do with your dismissal. In fact, I specifically noted the exemplary care environment you had created despite limited resources." I waved away her concern. "I'm not here about that." Reaching into my pocket, I withdrew Malcolm's napkin and placed it on her desk. "I need to know if this is real, if it's possible." She frowned, scanning the handwritten text. Her eyebrows rose progressively higher as she read. "This is unusual," she admitted, "but not unprecedented. Holographic wills, those handwritten by the testator, are recognized in Kansas under certain conditions." She looked up, her expression serious. "Do you know who Malcolm Everett is, Mrs. Doyle? Beyond being a patient here?" I shook my head. "Just an elderly veteran who was kind to me, who noticed me when most people didn't." Bethany leaned back in her chair, a strange expression crossing her face. "Malcolm Everett was a decorated Korean War veteran. But more than that, he was the largest private donor to this hospital's oncology wing. The Malcolm J. Everett Pavilion is named after him." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "That can't be right. He was just Mr. Malcolm in room 17. He never mentioned." "He was known for his humility," Bethany confirmed, "and for his insistence on being treated like any other patient. Most of the staff probably had no idea who he really was." She tapped the napkin thoughtfully. "This should be taken to the hospital's legal team immediately. If it's authentic and the notary seal suggests it is, this could be completely valid." Before I could respond, a knock at the door interrupted us. A nurse I didn't recognize poked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone insisting on seeing Mrs. Doyle. Says it's urgent." My first thought was Helena. Had something happened? But when the door opened wider, it revealed a thin man in an expensive suit clutching a leather portfolio. "Mrs. Clarice Doyle?" he inquired, his voice precise and measured. "I'm Edward Jameson, Mr. Everett's attorney. When I heard about your situation at the hospital, I tried to locate you at home but was told you might be here." He glanced at the napkin on Bethany's desk, and a small smile touched his lips. I see Malcolm's message found its way to you. Good. That will make this easier." The next hour passed in a blur of legal terminology and revelations that seemed to belong to someone else's life, not mine. Malcolm Everett, it seemed, had been watching me for months, had inquired about me, had made a decision that now, posthumously, would change everything. He passed away last night. Mr. Jameson informed me gently, peacefully, in his sleep. His formal will, drawn up in my office, confirms what that napkin states. You are his sole beneficiary, Mrs. Doyle. The house, a modest but respectable sum of money, and his personal effects are yours. But why? I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. I did nothing special. On the contrary, the lawyer replied, his expression softening. Malcolm told me about the night you found him trying to remove his oxygen mask. How instead of alerting the nurses or doctors, you sat with him for an hour while he talked about his late wife. How you understood his readiness to join her without judgment or platitudes. He said it was the first time in years he'd been treated as a man making a choice rather than a problem to be solved. Tears pricked at my eyes as the memory surfaced. A quiet night shift, the soft beeping of machines, an old man's dignity hanging by a thread. I'd done nothing extraordinary, just listened, just honored his humanity. Before you decide what to do with this inheritance, Mr. Jameson continued, sliding a sealed envelope across the table, Malcolm asked me to give you this, his final message. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the handwriting stronger than on the napkin but unmistakably the same. Clarice, it read, by now you know what I've left you. It's not charity, it's recognition. You clean floors but see people. That's rare. My guess is someone tried to hurt you for your kindness. Don't let them win. The truth is stronger than malice if you're brave enough to speak it. The envelope I left with my personal effects contains proof of what happened to you. Use it wisely. And remember, sometimes the smallest acts of mercy return 1,000-fold. Malcolm. I looked up, confusion mingling with growing understanding. What envelope? What proof? Before Jameson could answer, Bethany's office door burst open again. A hospital security guard stood there, looking uncertain. Ms. Taylor, there's a situation at reception. A woman demanding to see Mrs. Doyle. She's causing quite a scene. My stomach dropped as a familiar voice echoed down the corridor. Shauna's voice, shrill with indignation. I know she's in there. She has no right to be here after what she did. Mrs. Doyle, Mr. Jameson said quietly, gathering his papers. I believe the confrontation Malcolm warned you about is here. Are you ready? Months later, I was called back to the hospital. The new director wanted to speak with me. He said the complaint had been dismissed, and the new management wanted me to return. I declined, but I left my lunch container, that same worn one with its frayed edges, on his desk. Inside was a note Helena had written before she died. Clarice, thank you for taking care of my children as if they were your own. You are the mother I wish I could have been. The director cried. He asked me why I never told anyone. I answered, because no one ever asked. The path to that moment had been paved with both heartbreak and vindication. That day in Bethany Taylor's office, when Shauna's voice echoed down the corridor, I felt a strange calm settle over me, the kind that comes when you have nothing left to lose and everything to protect. I'm ready, I told Mr. Jameson, standing up despite the protest from my arthritic hip. Bethany looked alarmed, but I gave her a reassuring nod. Some confrontations are long overdue. Shauna burst into the office like a summer storm, all flash and fury. Her perfectly highlighted hair was disheveled, her designer coat unbuttoned and askew. Behind her, a security guard hovered uncertainly, clearly reluctant to physically remove a woman who looked so respectable on the surface. Aunt Clarice, she spat, her voice dripping with false concern. What are you doing here? Haven't you caused enough problems? Helena's beside herself with worry. You left James alone with her when she can barely sit up. The lie was so brazen, so calculated to paint me as neglectful, that for a moment I could only stare. James wasn't alone with Helena. Mrs. Peterson from next door was watching him, while Helena rested, an arrangement I'd carefully made before leaving. That's not true, Shauna, I said quietly, and you know it. Mrs. Doyle, Mr. Jameson interjected smoothly, extending his hand to Shauna. I don't believe we've met. Edward Jameson, attorney for the late Malcolm Everett. Shauna's eyes darted between us, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. Attorney? What is this about? Aunt Clarice, what have you done now? Perhaps we should all sit down, Bethany suggested, her social worker training evident in her calm tone. This seems like a family matter that needs resolving. There's nothing to resolve, Shauna insisted, her voice rising. My aunt has been neglecting her own family to play savior to my uncle's ex-wife and her children. She's been working herself to death for people who aren't even her blood. and now she's lost her job because of it. I'm trying to help her see reason." Mr. Jameson coughed delicately. "By filing a false complaint with her employer, by claiming she was receiving payment for childcare when she was, in fact, providing it freely out of familial duty." Shauna blanched. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do," I said, finding strength I didn't know I possessed. From my pocket, I pulled out the envelope Mr. Jameson had given me, the one Malcolm had left with his personal effects. I hadn't had time to open it yet, but Shauna didn't know that. Malcolm was more observant than people realized. He saw things, heard things, recorded things. It was a shot in the dark, a bluff based on nothing but instinct and Malcolm's cryptic message. But Shauna's reaction told me I'd struck closer to the truth than I knew. Her face drained of color and she sank uninvited into Bethany's spare chair. "What exactly did he record?" she whispered. I held her gaze steadily, channeling all the quiet dignity I'd cultivated over decades of being overlooked. "Everything, Shauna. Your visits to the hospital when you thought no one was watching. Your conversations with HR. The real reason you wanted me away from Helena's children. Mr. Jameson, bless him, didn't betray by even a flicker that I might be overplaying my hand. He simply opened his portfolio and made a show of consulting documents inside. Ms. Doyle, the younger Ms. Doyle," he clarified with a nod to Shauna. "Perhaps you're unaware that interfering with a person's employment through false claims is actionable, particularly when motivated by potential financial gain in the form of property that would otherwise go to minor children." Shauna's facade cracked. "That house was my father's before it was Helena's. It should stay in our family, not go to those, she faltered, perhaps realizing how revealing her outburst was. "Those children?" I finished for her. "Your own flesh and blood? Your cousins who have already lost their father and are losing their mother? You don't understand," she said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Dad promised me that house would be mine one day. Before he left, before everything fell apart. It's all I have left of him." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My brother, unreliable, selfish Douglas, had dangled the property before his daughter like a prize. Never mind that it wasn't his to give. And when Helena's diagnosis meant the house would likely pass to her children, Shauna had seen me, and my care for those children, as the obstacle to what she believed was rightfully hers. "Oh, Shauna," I sighed, suddenly tired beyond words. "What would you have done if your plan had worked? If I'd been fired, discredited, and forced to abandon those children? Who would have cared for them while Helena dies? They have other relatives," she muttered, not meeting my eyes. "On Helena's side, they could have taken them. And the house would have been sold to pay for their care," I concluded, seeing it all clearly now. With Douglas as Helena's ex-husband and the children's legal father, he, and by extension you, would have had a claim on the proceeds, especially if I wasn't in the picture advocating for the children to keep their home. The silence that followed was damning. Mr. Jameson cleared his throat. "Mrs. Doyle, given these revelations, I believe we have grounds to not only clear your name with the hospital, but potentially pursue damages for wrongful termination and defamation." Bethany looked uncomfortable but nodded in agreement. "The hospital would want to make this right, I'm sure, especially given Mr. Everett's relationship with the institution." 3 months later, after Helena had passed peacefully in her sleep with her children and me by her side, after a modest funeral where Douglas notably failed to appear, after the dust had settled on the legal proceedings that restored my reputation and provided a small settlement from the hospital, I received the call from the new hospital director. Dr. Sarah Chen was nothing like her predecessor. Where Martin Weber had been all policy and procedure, Dr. Chen led with humanity first. She had personally reviewed my case after taking the position and had been instrumental in the hospital's decision to acknowledge their error in firing me. "Mrs. Doyle," she said when I entered her office, "thank you for coming. I know this building holds difficult memories for you now." I settled into the chair across from her desk, noting the changes she'd made to the space. Plants thriving on the windowsill, children's artwork framed on the walls, a conspicuous absence of the intimidating policy manuals that had dominated under Weber's tenure. "I wanted to personally extend an offer for you to return to your position," she continued, "with a substantial raise, back pay for the time you were wrongfully terminated, and an official apology to be placed in your file. The board has unanimously approved these terms." I looked at this earnest young woman, probably close to the age Helena had been when she first became ill, and felt a strange mixture of gratitude and certainty. "That's very kind, Dr. Chen," I said, setting my worn backpack on the floor beside me. From it, I withdrew my lunch container, the same one that had started everything. "But I won't be coming back." Confusion crossed her face. "I understand if you need time to consider." "It's not that," I assured her. I placed the lunch container on her desk and opened it carefully. Inside, nestled where the food compartments had once been, was Helena's final letter to me, written in her increasingly shaky hand during her last lucid days. "I have a new purpose now." Dr. Chen read the letter, tears gathering in her eyes. When she looked up, her expression was one of profound understanding. "The children," she said softly, "you're raising them now." That night, as I walked home from the hospital for the last time, the autumn sky was ablaze with stars. I felt Helena's presence beside me, and Malcolm's too. Unlikely guardian angels for an unlikely family. At home, Malcolm's house that was now mine, spacious enough for 3 growing children and an old woman who finally had room to breathe, I found Tommy waiting up for me. At 10, he was already showing signs of the thoughtful man he would become. "Did you tell them, Aunt Cece?" he asked as I hung my coat by the door. "I did," I confirmed, settling onto the couch beside him. "I'm officially retired." He leaned against my shoulder, a rare display of vulnerability from a boy determined to be the man of the house. "Are you sad about not going back?" I considered the question carefully. "No," I finally answered. "Some chapters end so others can begin. And this new one, with you, Lily, and James, is the most important one I'll ever write." That night I left the worn lunch container on Shauna's doorstep. No note, no explanation. Just the plastic vessel that had carried so much more than food. It had carried love, sacrifice, and ultimately, truth. Whether she would understand the gesture, I couldn't say. But I knew I no longer needed to carry the weight of secrets or resentment. I had children to raise, a life to build, and a promise to keep to a woman who had entrusted me with her most precious possessions. Today I live in a modest house left to me by Mr. Malcolm. Helena's children still call me Aunt Cece. Every Sunday we eat together, using lunch containers. Everyone brings their own, and they're all filled with love, stories, and something I learned too late. Silence carries more truths than shouts. 5 years have passed since that autumn when everything changed. Malcolm's house on Sycamore Lane has transformed from a stranger's dwelling to a home vibrant with life. The walls, once adorned with a bachelor veteran's sparse decorations, now burst with children's artwork, school certificates, and family photographs. The backyard, previously neat but unused, now features a vegetable garden where James, no longer a baby but a sturdy 7-year-old, proudly grows carrots and tomatoes under my guidance. "Aunt Cece," he called this morning, bursting through the back door with dirt-smudged cheeks and a handful of radishes. "Look what came up. They're perfect." I wiped my hands on my apron and examined his harvest with appropriate reverence. "Well done, James. Those will be wonderful in our salad tonight." His grin, so like Helena's, warmed me from the inside out. Of the 3 children, James remembers his mother the least. He was too young when she passed. Sometimes I catch him studying her photograph on the mantel, his expression serious as he searches for connections to the woman who gave him life, but couldn't stay to raise him. Lily, now 12, preserves Helena in different ways. She's inherited her mother's artistic talent and quiet determination. Her bedroom walls are covered with drawings, some imagined scenes, others meticulous recreations of family photos featuring Helena. "So I don't forget," she explained once when I found her working late into the night on a particularly detailed portrait. And Tommy, 15 going on 40, carries Helena in his sense of responsibility, in the protective way he watches over his siblings, in the solemn promises he keeps. He looks more like my brother Douglas every day, a resemblance that might trouble me if it weren't for the fundamental difference in their characters. Where Douglas ran from difficulty, Tommy faces it head-on, shoulders squared against whatever comes. Our Sunday tradition began almost by accident, about a year after I moved the children into Malcolm's house. Tommy had been sullen that week, struggling with a school assignment about family heritage. "I don't know what to write," he'd confessed, frustration evident in his clenched jaw. Everyone else has normal families, with parents, with stories. That Sunday, I pulled out 4 lunch containers, new ones I'd purchased to replace the worn vessel that had carried so much history. I set them on the kitchen table where the children sat doing homework. "What are those for?" Lily asked, looking up from her spelling words. "For our stories," I replied. "Each of us is going to pack something for lunch tomorrow that reminds us of your mother. And when we eat it, we'll share the memory it brings back." They stared at me, then at the colorful plastic containers. Red for Tommy, purple for Lily, blue for James, green for me. "Like what?" Tommy asked cautiously. "Like sweet potatoes," I suggested. "Your mother craved them when she was pregnant with each of you. Or strawberry yogurt. Remember how she'd sneak an extra cup to each of you when you'd been especially good?" A small smile tugged at Tommy's lips. "She used to make those peanut butter and banana sandwiches cut into dinosaur shapes, with the crust cut off," Lily added, her eyes brightening. "And chocolate milk," James piped up, though I suspected this was more wishful thinking than actual memory. The next day, we packed our lunch containers with these memory foods and took them to Riverside Park, Helena's favorite place to bring the children when she still had the strength. As we ate beneath the sprawling oak trees, the stories flowed, hesitantly at first, then with gathering momentum. By the time we packed up to go home, something had shifted. A weight had lifted, particularly from Tommy's shoulders. "Can we do this again?" he asked as we walked to the car. "Next Sunday?" And so our tradition was born. Each week we pack our lunch containers with food connected to memories. Sometimes the memories are of Helena. Sometimes they're newer. School triumphs, friendship dramas, everyday joys. The containers have become vessels for our evolving family history, a way to honor what was while embracing what is. Shauna never spoke to me again after that confrontation in Bethany's office. For nearly 2 years, I heard nothing from her or my brother. Then one day a letter arrived. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting on the envelope. I opened it with trembling fingers, half expecting legal threats or renewed accusations. Instead, a single line on plain white paper. "I still remember the smell of your lunch container, and I hate the fact that I remember it with longing." No apology, no explanation. Just a glimpse into a wound I hadn't known she carried, a hunger for the very thing she'd tried to destroy. I never replied. Some conversations are better left in silence. Douglas resurfaced briefly when he learned of Malcolm's inheritance. He appeared at my door one crisp October morning, older but unchanged in essentials, still handsome in that hollow way, still quick with explanations that sounded reasonable until you examined them closely. "Clarice," he'd said, arms open for an embrace I didn't step into. "You're looking well. Prosperity suits you." I stood in the doorway, neither inviting him in nor sending him away. "What do you want, Douglas?" His smile faltered slightly. "Can't a brother visit his sister? Especially when she's come into some good fortune?" Behind me, I heard small footsteps on the stairs, one of the children curious about our visitor. Douglas peered past me, his expression changing when he glimpsed Tommy watching from the hallway. "Is that," he began, something like genuine emotion crossing his face. "Your son?" I finished for him. "Yes. One of the 3 children you abandoned along with their dying mother. The 3 children who now have a home with me, which is not up for negotiation or discussion." Douglas had the grace to look ashamed, if only briefly. "Clarice, I know I made mistakes, but I've changed. I want to be part of their lives." "That's not my decision to make," I replied, stepping aside to reveal Tommy fully. "It's theirs." Tommy had stared at his father with eyes too old for his years, taking in the man who shared his features, but nothing of his character. "We have school," he said finally, his voice steady. "Maybe another time." Douglas left shortly after, promising to return. He never did. Now, as I set our Sunday table with the 4 lunch containers that have become sacred objects in our small family, I reflect on the journey that brought us here. How a plastic vessel meant to carry food became the vessel that carried us through loss, betrayal, and ultimately, to redemption. "Aunt Cece," Lily calls from the kitchen. "Is it time to pack our containers?" "Yes," I answer, moving to join my children, for they are mine in all the ways that truly matter. What memories are we sharing today? Sometimes it's in what we don't say that our greatest strength resides. And today, if someone asks about my 2 jobs, I smile and respond. One was cleaning other people's floors. The other was trying not to let my heart get soiled by what they did to me. But the real truth, the one I live every day, is that I never had 2 jobs at all. I had one calling disguised as drudgery, hidden in a lunch container, revealed through sacrifice, to love completely, without reservation, expecting nothing in return. It's the hardest work there is, and the only work truly worth doing. Sometimes the most profound truths are carried in the simplest vessels. My lunch container wasn't just a plastic box. It was a symbol of silent sacrifice, of love that asks for nothing in return. We all carry something like this in our lives. Burdens that others can't see. Choices we make not because they're easy, but because they're right. What's in your lunch container? What silent battles are you fighting that the world around you fails to recognize? The truth is, we rarely know the full story behind someone else's actions. The cleaning lady who never eats, the neighbor who seems standoffish, the colleague who always seems tired. Each carries their own container of untold stories. Had anyone at that hospital simply asked me why I never ate, everything might have been different. What would you have done in my place? Would you have spoken up sooner? Or like me, would you have carried your burden silently, believing that love doesn't need to announce itself to be real? I hope my story reminds you to look deeper, to ask the questions that matter, and to recognize that sometimes the greatest acts of love happen in the quietest ways. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to my channel for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Remember, in a world that often shouts, it's the whispers that can change lives.